Hey everyone, welcome to the third Cure Call. Really great to have everybody here for another week. I hope everyone had a great week last week. We had an exciting one. People onboarded onto the Curator app for the first time. Hopefully, you guys had a good experience. Thank you, everybody, for going through that process, doing the trainings, filling out the form, providing your feedback. That was super helpful. Um, Let me share my screen here. Oop. And start this off. So we are going to have another big week this week. Um, this week, we are actually going to get to work publishing knowledge and super excited to take the step, whether you're technical or non-technical. Should be a fun week. But first, Adam, do you want to give a brief recap of how last week went and where we're at with things?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Great to see some familiar names in the chat. I met a few of you last week and had some great conversations around health, AI, and education in particular. But last week we had our onboarding, so we got everybody to try out the Geo Curator app, to complete some trainings and to create their temporary profiles. This is still on the test net at the moment, and we'll be, we're preparing a transition to the mainnet quite soon. And you guys have given us some great feedback. I think we received more than 70 different form answers and feedbacks. So we're now processing all the feedback, giving it to the dev and the design team so that we can improve the UX and UI for everybody. But thanks a lot. And this week is an exciting one. We'll be moving to the first the contribution steps and helping you make your first contributions and get a bit more familiar with how contribution works on Geo.
All right. Thanks, Adam. So yeah, let's get into it. So our goal for this week is to have people join some of the new spaces and get started tackling some bounties. So we're going to start with some new bounties, and you'll be able to check them out, and you'll be able to request bounties. Um, and uh, and what happens is we have someone from the core team. Later, it'll be any editor of the space basically allocates the bounties to people. And what that does is it helps to reduce duplicated work, right? As much as possible, we want to have things be very open and self-service, and people can do what they want. But it's not a good experience if four people are working on the same thing. They go to submit it, and find out that three other people did the same thing, and they just wasted all that time. So we try to build in some tools to get some communication happening so that we can kind of divide and conquer. Hopefully that works well. At the beginning, it'll for sure help if you just post in Discord and communicate, let people know what you're doing. It'll just help also to make sure we're doing a good job of divvying things up. We're going to be learning through this process, but the goal is to kind of communicate and have some nice allocation of work, of course, based on your interests. We are going to be starting initially with three spaces. So I know, we're doing six spaces we've said as part of this curator program. But we think it makes sense to start with a smaller group and then expand once we get things working well and proved out. So for this week, we're going to be going live with the crypto space, the AI space, and the health space, where I think a lot of people have been really interested. Um, so this is basically how it goes. Multiple people can request. For some of these, we can have multiple people working on the same bounties. So some bounties are really kind of you really could have lots of people doing it. I think, use your judgment on if you think there might be some conflicts and some other people trying to do the same thing. Like if it feels like the bounty you're working on is pretty roped off and self-contained, then you're probably fine. If it's something where there are a bunch of people that could be working in similar areas at the same time, you're just going to want to like publish your changes sooner, right? So other people can see it and we're less likely to get conflicts. So we'll get a feel for it and see how it goes. As much as possible, we've tried to make the tasks pretty narrowly scoped. And especially at the beginning, because we're bootstrapping this graph, there's not going to be a ton of existing entities there for you to link. So, as we get going, there's going to be more and more entities that are already part of the graph that if you want to create a relation, you might be able to just, pick something to point to. But at the beginning, we're creating a lot of these entities from the beginning. So I think what was going to make a lot of sense is, to start with, just single entity type. So let's say we're in the health space, right? Maybe, you want to handle diseases and you want to, organize all the different diseases. Like that's an entity type and you could start there. Now, a disease could be related to like a symptom or something like that. But if somebody else is doing symptoms, better not try to create those relationships in a first pass. Whoever's got symptoms can work on symptoms, whoever's got disease can work on disease, and then maybe next week we can create the relations. So I think that kind of thing will make a lot of sense. And let's try it out to really kind of start out with, entities for a given type, maybe, set all of the properties, all the values on that entity, and let's take it from there. So that's the general idea. Now, we've got a path for both technical folks and non-technical folks. So, we're all trying to organize this global knowledge graph. We all come at it with different skills, and there's space for everybody. So for the non-technical folks, we've got this GeoGenesis user interface. Should be 2 words here. And it's a app that anybody can use to add information and publish content. Now, especially at the beginning, the biggest thing that we're going to need uh, help with from non-technical people is the images. Really great cover images, really great avatars. And so if you're non-technical and you're looking for a place to help at the beginning, especially, we already have the beginning of a structure. We want to make the initial content look as good as possible. And imagery is really something that goes a long way. And so I would kind of start there. And I would also start on just kind of fixing things and cleaning things up. You're going to see, we've got some initial content. People are going to be adding content. There's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit. And one thing that I would just kind of, plant the seed on for this week is getting the existing starting point to be really polished is really a really great place to start, right? Whether it's fixing issues, right? It might be factual issues, it might be, how things are structured, any number of things. Adding additional relations if things already exist, just, overall, think of it like tending a garden. And if we start there, then as we add things, we'll keep things looking really nice, really well organized, and that would be a great use of time. In the future, there will be a lot more content that you can add, either using AI or just yourself, but and opportunities for original content and all kinds of things. But this is definitely a really helpful place to start for the non-technical folks. And then if you're a developer, we've got a Geo SDK and the Geo API. Hopefully you did the trainings for those. We included a whole developer section in the training. Um, but you got some great tools here where you can programmatically publish knowledge to the knowledge graph, and you can programmatically query from the knowledge graph. And it's pretty easy to get AI set up to do both of these things also. Should be able to go pretty fast once you got things set up. We do want to walk all of the developers through how to use the SDK and how to use the API. I know you've done the training, but I think it really helps to do it with other people. And so we're going to do a live technical training tomorrow. I believe it's tomorrow. I don't know if we've sent out the invites yet. I think we probably haven't, but it should probably be tomorrow. If not, I guess we've got a potential placeholder for Wednesday. So we're going to pick two times. Uh, we're going to do them, for different time zones so that it's easy for people, wherever you are in the world, you can just choose one of these to come to. We'll have two different people doing these sessions. We're going to have Nick from our team and Preston from our team do these trainings. So if you are a developer, keep an eye out. We'll send everyone a calendar invite based on where you're at, and hopefully you can join one of these. And then from there, you should be in a really good spot to start publishing programmatically. All right, so for both developers and non-developers, you're going to want to use GeoGenesis to browse the knowledge graph. And you can think of this a little bit like a block explorer for knowledge. I think, we can make this a really nice interface, and I think plenty of people will want to just browse using, GeoGenesis. But of course, a lot of people will also consume the knowledge through specialized apps, all kinds of custom apps that you can build because it's open data. But we think it's really important to have, a good user interface for browsing and exploring the entire knowledge graph, and that's GeoGenesis. So let me give you guys a bit of a tour. I know that it was in the training, but I think this is the first time that we look at this really together. So for today, I'm going to kind of walk us through the crypto space. And I think the crypto space should be a pretty good example of how to set up an industry, right? There's going to be different types of spaces. We're going to have interest groups, we're going to have regions, we're going to have academic fields. But crypto is an industry, people work in the crypto industry, and I think a lot of industries, there will be things that we want to structure kind of similarly that any industry would have. And then of course there's types of things and knowledge that is specific to each industry. And so right now I'm going to kind of walk through the more general stuff that is applicable to any industry. So when you come to the homepage for the crypto space, first thing you're going to see here is some news. And this news here is a little bit older, but we had a period of a few months where we had our Geo Explorers every day organizing, the top news stories of the day, and organizing it by topic. So, we have all these different topics. These are crypto topics, and then the news stories of the day. So, there was this thing here with Pancake Swap, and for each news story, we link to the different sources for that story, because you can have many articles or posts or things, right, that are covering any given story. And so here you can link to all the different sources. And then what we were doing before also was extracting all of the claims. So that's pretty cool too. And you can have people curating those claims. So there's a lot that you can do with news as kind of an aggregator and almost, like this kind of home page for any industry to kind of see what's happening in the industry. Then you want to organize, projects, and you can have, let's say I want to find Uniswap, right? You should be able to search for any project, any person, and see them come right up. So, we have a page here for the Uniswap protocol. Um, it's different from Uniswap Labs, right? They're both projects, but the Uniswap, the protocol is a protocol, and then there's Uniswap Labs, which is a company. Come here, right? You have your content area, you have your types, and then some properties. And you can see the backlinks. Now, obviously, this is very bare bones to start, and you could imagine adding more and more content to these things over time. You can also add like tabs, so you can have different tabs for things, and what you'll be able to do is actually convert any entity into a space if you want to do that too, so that becomes interesting as things start out as entities, and then maybe there's enough of a community forms around it, and then you want to actually start to manage it. So you can convert it to a space and start to manage it that way with its own governance. So you can click on, you can see all the back references, right? So here, the backlinks, similar to if you're familiar with Roam or systems like that, right? So we've got Hayden here, who's a person. We've got some information about Hayden. And you can see that he works at Uniswap Labs, right? So because we had this relationship that he works at Uniswap Labs, you saw that backlink, and you can see his roles, his skills. Right? So Hayden's a CEO, he's a founder, um, some of his skills, and what you can do is, right? So we're pretty familiar with these sorts of things, right? Where you can kind of click to navigate. Um, but here, uh, because this is a property graph, what we can do is we can, hover over this thing here, and it shows you a thing that you can go to, which is a page for the relation, right? The relation between Hayden and Uniswap Labs. So if I want to know, information about that relationship, right, that Hayden works at Uniswap Labs, I can come here and I can see his role. So he's the founder and CEO at Uniswap Labs. Here's when he started working at Uniswap Labs. And sometimes you'd have a situation where maybe roles change over time, right? You're at the same company, you started in some role, then you became, a senior, or you changed roles. So these are also relations. So, say you had, the entry level role or something, you can then jump to that relation. You could add properties to that. Maybe you started there and ended at a certain time, and you started and ended at a different role at another time. So this is super cool. It's different than anything you've seen before, in any other apps really. Um, and it's the power of property graphs. Now, Lizzie, I think we have not disabled people from scribbling. It would be great if we could figure out how to do that. Um, all right, so that's projects and people. We can look at events. So events are a really big part of the crypto space. It seems like people are always traveling to events, giving talks, thinking, as an early stage industry, people are constantly discovering new things and wanting to talk about their work. So here we have an event page for DevCon 7, which happened in 2024. It's part of an event series, right? The DevCon, event series. We can see that it took place in Bangkok, the city. And, I can click on Bangkok if I'm curious about that. I can see that we have an entity for Bangkok, the city. It's in this places space. I can see a little map there of Bangkok. and I can see talks that people gave at DEF CON. So I could click on something and see, okay, here's a talk by Anthony Sassano, is an Ethereum influencer. And you could imagine even having, transcripts, claims, all kinds of things. So there's really no limit to what you can organize in, global interconnected graph. And we can get into more and more detail and really start to see, when did certain things get announced, who's coming up with what ideas, people who really want to stay current and maybe don't have time to watch all of the videos, when a conference happens. It'd be really cool to just kind of see, hey, what are the top things that came out of a conference? So, we can structure all of that this way. And, maybe when there's some events coming up soon, I mean, it's probably going to be too soon, but who knows? I mean, there's ETH Denver's coming up, ECC's going to come up after that. So it could be cool ahead of these things to organize some of the stuff, but also historically to just kind of go back and really create a record of all these kinds of things that are happening in the industry. Jobs, I think, is really interesting for people that are trying to get into the space. Maybe they want to make a change. So you can, check out jobs. Maybe someone wants to be a solutions architect at Arbitrum here. We got some information about the role, the department, the employer, seniority. So this information, people can check it out. And if we do a good job of organizing, and linking the roles and the skills, it should be easy for someone to find relevant jobs for them. And also, you could start to see the demand for different types of skills and different types of jobs. And right now it's in the crypto space, but you could start to see that like across different industries and stuff, it could get really interesting. Learn is kind of educational materials. So here we just kind of, plopped in the courses that we had you go through as part of the training. But, in any industry, right, you're going to have different topics. And, we could even have courses and training as like part of the knowledge graph for each industry. So if we're organizing the different roles and skills, which I didn't show that, but you could have that kind of under jobs. Maybe you want to learn, a skill or get started. So we can organize educational materials for any industry. Under media here, we have, I don't know why it's not showing now, but previously, I guess we made some changes. We had some podcasts, and sorry about that. I probably changed something. But yeah, podcasts kind of under media, you could have videos, things like that. So that's an industry. That's how you could organize, information for an industry. Now you do it a little bit differently for health. You do it a little differently for different types of spaces. So we can look up health and see. Oh, and now this is something I wanted to kind of bring up with y'all. So people went through our training, and there's two things that I think is worth a little shout out. You may have had a little bit of, confusion or, might have wondered, when you were given the option to pick like roles or skills and things like that, right? Any relations. Anytime we have a relation, we let you like find or create an entity. So if the entity already exists, you can pick that. Otherwise, you can just create it. Now, at this point, and when we had you go through the training, we had a completely blank graph. And so there really weren't many entities. And so what happened is everybody kind of created their own. Obviously, that's a little bit chaotic. It's really easy to end up with duplicates. So, it's something that you want to think about in this type of a system is how do you kind of, minimize duplication. And ideally, you want people to kind of converge if they're talking about the same thing, right? If we're talking about TypeScript, hopefully we're all pointing to the same TypeScript and we don't have, 20 different TypeScript entities. But in this case, because we didn't have those things well organized, I think people created a lot of different things. And then also, we're kind of testing here. It's our test net. But we can already see some like skills and roles that people created, which is cool. Um, so that was one thing. The other thing that's worth kind of mentioning is, right now, anything that you publish here is going to be visible, right, to people who are searching. Now, that's not how it's going to work. And very soon, we'll be rolling out this thing that we call the global index. Um, and what we do with the global index is we keep track of which spaces are part of the public global graph. So if you're creating content that's part of a space that's part of this canonical, right, global graph, then your entities are searchable and findable. Um, but we don't want anyone to be able to create a space, right? It is permissionless. Anybody can create a space, but that doesn't mean that immediately everybody should see all the content you create, right? Because you could be a troll, you could be any number of things. So there's a process to become part of the global graph. It's easy. Anybody should be able to do it, but we're building up reputation, we're building up trust. And so just another thing to know right now, it's going to be a little bit noisy, right? People are going to create spaces, stuff's going to pop up here. Just know that this is like a temporary state of affairs. And soon we'll kind of be rolling out this whole process to become part of the global graph. And that helps kind of with the curation. So wanted to have a little call out there. But right now we're going to go to very basic kind of placeholder that we have for the health space. Now we're going to want you guys to bring in a lot of the content for these different spaces, but a little starting point with some different just supplements and drugs and conditions and diseases and procedures and different healthy things. We're also going to have this healthcare space. So I see kind of a difference between health and healthcare, right? Where healthcare is like an industry, people work in the healthcare industry, they're delivering care, hospitals, all these sorts of things. You could argue, procedures should go there. Um, so these are the sorts of things that, you can have all kinds of discussions around what should live where, right? And hopefully as you start to get familiar with your fellow curators and, in specific spaces and interest areas, you'll have these kinds of conversations, right? Like, should the procedures live in the health space or in the healthcare space, right? And I mean, like they can live in both, but, ideally there's some method to the madness and you kind of choose like which spaces, what group of people do you think should kind of be responsible for curating, that type of thing and kind of, divide and conquer a little bit. Um, so we are going to have both spaces where the health space is more of like an interest area, right? A lot of people are interested in health. They want to be proactive about their health. They want to learn about health. And so there's kind of that general interest group, interest area of health, and then you have kind of the healthcare industry. For AI, we've got a space there. We've got a lot of people are things related to AI. Right now it's just very bare bones, but we've got different projects, different people, different events, different things related to AI. We'll track the top labs. By the way, I was just listening to the Dwarkesh podcast with Elon Musk. It was a really good episode. If you guys haven't heard it, I would listen to it. But Elon talks about how he hates the term labs, and he's right. That usually these labs are meant to be like nonprofits, which is like how OpenAI started. But these are totally for-profit, profit maximizing companies, and yet they still call themselves labs. So that's maybe a nomenclature thing. Maybe we shouldn't call them labs in the AI space, and we should just call them companies, which is what they are, even though they're inventing stuff. So okay, so these are some of the spaces right now. The crypto space is most fleshed out. We're going to add them to the home page here, so you can browse them. Um, We are in the process of setting a few things up. So we're going to do the same thing that we did last week. We're going to do batches of sending out invites. So you will need to request to become a member before you can publish any changes to the spaces. So you come here, I'm already a member of the space. I could leave the space if I want, but you can come here. There'll be like a join button here. You can expand this and kind of see here who are the members, who are the editors, and you can request to join, and then one of us has to approve you, and then you're part of the space. So you'll be able to do that for the crypto space, the AI space, or the health space when we send you an email that it's your turn as part of your batch. But first, you're going to want to check out the bounties. So this we'll be able to send out potentially today. Right here, we have a bunch of different bounties for crypto, for health, about to add the AI bounties. And they're all different types of things. So this one is, a single property, which will happen sometimes. Hey, let's get, the job board URLs for the top 100 projects. And, that's a little bit subjective. You can choose what you think the top 100 projects are. We don't really have like a, ranking right now. Um, but the general idea is, depending on your ability, how much you can kind of automate, we want to be a little bit smart about how we add things. We've done this in the past where we've kind of brought in the ocean. You go out and you're like, okay, let's get everything that's ever been made. And you come back with like gigabytes of data, and we don't want to do that. We want to go slow. We're still, ironing out kinks with the infrastructure. We're just starting to open this stuff up. So we don't want to go crazy on data. If you're looking at a few megabytes, 10 megabytes to 50 megabytes, you're probably getting to the upper limits of what we should do at the beginning. That's not counting images, right? So images, you're fine, right? You upload those, that goes to IPFS. We can handle a ton of images. But for the data itself, right, be thinking in hundreds of entities, thousands of entities, but not too much more than maybe 1,000, 2,000 of any type of thing for the beginning. It's also, we don't want to drown in noise. And so this could easily get really noisy and we have low quality things. And eventually that'll be fine. And of course, there's going to be so much stuff in here. And we're going to gradually start to introduce things like rankings, right? Which is going to help us so that we're not kind of cluttering things up. But we don't have that live today. And so we're going to do a little bit of manual curation and, as much as possible, try to bring in things that are interesting. And little at a time is fine, 100, 1,000, something like that, right? So here we've got improved fundraising information for 100 projects. Some of these actually, it looks like we didn't get all the descriptions in here. And so this is my mistake. We actually had much longer descriptions and they didn't get included. So I'm going to go back through and fix this because it was actually quite detailed. But okay, so most of the bounties are basically 100 points, 1,000 points, or 10,000 points, depending on complexity. We may still tweak this a little bit. So I wanted to get this out here. Don't yell at us if we tweak things in the next day or two. We have here add top 200 proteins. Is that worth 10,000 points? And some of this stuff is subjective. Most of these you'll see are kind of 1,000, 100, the easy ones like let's add avatars. Let's add, some basic information. It's maybe 100. Something like this is that quite a lot, but maybe achievable, right? To grab the smart contract audits. that have been done. There aren't that many protocols right now. We'll try to scope this down a little bit more, but for the crypto space, things like tokens, things like, let's get all the networks, let's get all the, different types of things. This is not a comprehensive list, and we're going to be adding to this all the time. And hopefully, what's going to happen is you're going to jump into GeoGenesis. You're going to see what's there. If you see things that are missing that we haven't thought of, post it in the chat, post it in Discord, and someone can jump in easily and create a bounty. Right. So this is going to be an iterative process. This list will be, constantly updating as we go through. Um, but what you're going to want to do is, you log in. Right now, we're still on the test net, so it's the same credentials you had before, and you can come here and you can click this "I'm interested" button. Right, if you see something that you want, you click I'm interested, and we'll see that, and then we can kind of allocate. So we'll see, okay, 5 people want to do this one. We think only 2 people should be working on it, or 1 person, and that's how we'll kind of allocate it. So that's basically going to be your first step, is to go through, and we'll send this link out, and you can basically, register your interest for all the bounties that you would like to take, and we'll try to get those allocated to you. And so if you are non-technical, again, I highly recommend starting with maybe the images, things like that. And once we've given you the go-ahead, you can already start going out and working on, generating those images. You can kind of do that on your own. I think what we're probably going to want to do is end up opening up the like GeoGenesis for editing towards the end of the week. So, plan to be kind of self-sufficient, going out, finding your information, organizing it, and towards the end of the week, but really throughout the week, right, we're going to be doing the batches. We'll give people access. You can publish your proposals through GeoGenesis, or, after the technical training tomorrow, uh, developers will be able to start publishing using the SDK. And you should be able to publish it and see things show up there in GeoGenesis. Cool. So I I'm not sure. I don't know if we have Nick on the call, whether you have to join the space before you can register your interest. I am not sure about that, because we're not going to be accepting people into the spaces yet. I mean, we could accept people, but we're not going to be um, approving proposals quite yet until throughout the week. But give it a shot. Let us know how it goes, and basically choose which of those 3 spaces for this week you want to start with. And I think that we're probably going to want to start with these 3 spaces, I would guess, for the month of February. Um, it's going to take time to get things really polished, and I think there's a lot of value in, I mean, the polish and going deep, right? Because if we get even these spaces, right, if we have a really great space for AI, where then we're able to organize all the, you want to sift through what are the best techniques that came out in the last 3 days for OpenClaw or whatever, and we have the best place to find that well organized, like that already gets pretty interesting. So right, there's all kinds of things that we can do with health, with crypto, with AI. It's worth getting it usable, getting it to a place where we want to post about it, people find themselves coming back. So, let's take maybe all of February to get these spaces dialed in, and then maybe we expand to, US politics, world affairs, and education. I think that could make sense. Um, so, okay, we've got the next steps. Do we have any questions? Adam, did you see anything come through the chat?
Yeah. So there was a great question by Thomas, but first, there's a few people asking about the dev training call and how they can join. So the invites will go off to you now. We'll also have them in the recap email that we send right afterwards. You'll receive all of that. Um, a few great questions in the chat. One from Thomas, which was asking, will you be using anything to keep track of what skills people demonstrate, or will you be trusting skills listed in profiles? And I think he meant that for, and I do mean right now for the curators. I could see that individuals over time, as this grows, could verify claims or skills for people as we do with articles. So I think he's asking, how are we going to assign the bounties to people and judge people's skills in the initial moments? And do we just go off trusting what they've told us in their applications?
Yeah, so I think the right approach to this now, every space can handle this however they want, right? Like at the beginning, we're the editors of these spaces, but eventually, I mean, there will be hundreds and then thousands of editors, and they do whatever they want in their space. Um, I tend to care less about credentials. That's my personal kind of leaning. I like to see what people can do. So, I feel like, give people the opportunity, see what they can do. If it's good, take it. And if it's not, don't. I think, being an editor, it's kind of like being a manager, right? Like you become a manager when you're good enough, hopefully, to do that job yourself, right? I'm an engineering manager. Maybe like you were an engineer, you know what good engineering looks like. Now you can manage a team of engineers and you kind of in some ways are the quality control or you're responsible for the quality of the work, but you delegate to people, right? I think being an editor is a little bit like that where you should be able to tell the difference between good work and bad work. And if someone's doing good work, then great. It's good to have them on board. That's my general approach. Now, some spaces maybe do need credentials, and I'm sure we could integrate with cool, ZK like credentialing, things that are getting built on Ethereum. There's all kinds of cool experimentation that can happen if you need to like prove that you've, done whatever, education or work experience or whatever. But I think for a lot of this stuff starting out, it's probably okay to just see what people can do and take it from there.
One more question that I saw. How are we going to know what bounty has been allocated through us? Is it going to be via email or do we get a notification on GeoGenesis?
Yeah, so we don't have notifications yet. It's definitely something that it's in our pipeline. I mean, we have started working on it, but it is not live. So for the time being, you will have to check back in the app, and you'll see in the app if it's been assigned to you, and you've got a home where you can see things in the Curator app. So for now, that's the process. But I'm going to be honest. I mean, we haven't fully tested this stuff out. We've just kind of gotten it all out, and we're excited to share with people. But bear with us if there are any hiccups. Just let us know, ping us, right? If you haven't heard back, and we'll try to communicate. So you can always get a hold of us, and we want your feedback throughout, and we'll try to be responsive and get things working super smoothly. And yeah, hopefully soon in the next few weeks we'll have some great notifications. Um, cool.
Last
Any
question, Yaniv, are you planning to launch an MCP to develop quick tools or mini applications related to the Geo ecosystem?
Yeah, good question. I mean, that would definitely make sense. Right now we're just kind of focused on the knowledge, but I think MCP could be cool. Skills for sure, right? That people can just kind of, hook into and just kind of tells your LLM exactly how to do certain things. So we should definitely work on the AI tooling. Yeah, should be easy enough to do. But just gonna start with the knowledge. And if anyone wants to contribute that kind of thing too, it's an open source project. So hopefully people have fun tinkering. Cool. All right. Well, super excited for this week. Really excited to get started. As you can see, every week we're learning a lot more. Hopefully it feels like the right kind of pace. In some ways, I know people have been eager to get their hands, on the stuff. In other ways, I feel like every week we cover so much, so I think, everything kind of is at its pace. We're ramping up. But hopefully you're going to have fun this week. Let us know if you have any questions or issues. We're available for you. And please, speak up in the Discord. Let people know what you're working on. Ask if you have any questions. There's going to be all kinds of questions on ontologies. Hey, what property should I use? Should I change this? We do have types and properties we've already defined. I didn't show that to you, but we do have existing types and properties for these things. So you can use that as a starting point. You can also extend them. Um, but yeah, let us know if you have any questions. We're here and super excited to start building out the graph. So have a great week, everyone. Holla at us, and we'll see you online in the Geoverse. Thanks, y'all.